So, Tower Defense Simulator PvP Ranked has a massive issue. You may know that in PvP Ranked, you gain and lose elo depending on the matches you win and if you lose the match as well. Now, the amount of elo that you get is based on the amount of elo that the other person or the other people have in that game. However, what people have discovered is that if you were to quit the game before you start the match, so in the intermission lobby for PvP mode, you do not lose any elo. You are meant to lose elo if you were to quit during the match, but I think the developers either didn't implement it properly and didn't think that people would quit during matchmaking and in the intermission lobby, or they kept it around in case like the other person disconnects, for example, and you're on your ones versus two people. You can quit then without any penalty. However, what the developers probably didn't anticipate is other people intimidating the other people to quit. Now, this intimidation could be, oh, please leave the game or whatever, or, you know, just straight up like threatening them to leave the game. I'm not entirely sure how much threatening has occurred, but I would have to assume that it's just please leave the match or something like that. However, you can continue that match if this was a 2v2, for example, and like the other two players quit in a ranked match. The two people that remained in that match, they can continue that match and they can actually win rewards in that match. This includes elo rewards, and what some players have done, for example, is they've actually managed to get up to like major 2 or major 1 even, using this, I guess, strategy by intimidating other players to literally quit their matches. So it is estimated that every single player that is a major rank, and at least every single player that can play Fallen matches, so those being at least major 1, it's been speculated that every single person with major 1 is illegitimate. They have basically encouraged the other players in the match to quit so that they can win that match and gain the elo points from that. Now, obviously, this isn't the case that everyone does this. I have to assume that most people who are Sergeant 1, 2 or 3, they may not do this practice regularly. And then even the lieutenants, for example, I've heard some reports that some lieutenant players, they don't encourage this whatsoever. Now, obviously, you can't manipulate matches to play against your friend and force them to quit matches. While you can be in a party with someone and then join a casual 1v1 match, and that would work, you'll be versing against your friends. What you can't do is then go into a ranked match and do a 1v1 triggered with you and your friend in a party, because the game will not allow that. The game does not allow manipulation of opponents to allow you to play against your friend, which can lead to situations like this, except people have now discovered that they can, I guess, harass players. What these players are doing is they're going into random matches and they're encouraging other players, for example, to quit their matches. I would have to assume it's easier in a 1v1, given the fact that you only need one player to basically quit. But I have to say that I've actually experienced this myself. So me and Mentin were playing a game, for example, and then the other two players disconnected during the intermission lobby, so they didn't lose any elo. However, me and Mentin were able to continue that match and then gain elo points from that match. So technically speaking, me and Mentin have dabbled in this practice, but that being said, we didn't encourage the other players to actually disconnect from the server. They did it on their own accord, so that's not our fault. So do bear in mind there are some accidental, I guess, wins from people disconnecting during the intermission lobby. Furthermore, if you were to disconnect in the teleporting process, so from clicking this, finding a game, and then going over into matchmaking, if you were to disconnect during that, the match wouldn't even start in the first place. It's only when the banning the tower thing is triggered, then can you quit without any repercussions up until the match starts. Now, there are some rumours going around that players who have abused this, so basically everyone who's over the rank of Major 1, they'll get demoted in terms of their rank. Now, the developers can actually quite easily tell who's doing this. They can see the length of the average matches that you're playing, and if it's like, I don't know, 5 minutes because you're encouraging the other players to quit, then it's very easy to tell, actually, yes, you are probably abusing this. Now, obviously, there is a flaw in this, in that the other players may not want to quit, for example. And in that case, you may end up actually either winning the match, which, you know, fair enough, or you may end up losing the match. So I assume that all of these players here, if they did actually use this feature, I guess, to their advantage, then their losses are from people who didn't quit their match and they ended up losing. All I'm saying is, if this is the case and all these players have gotten ranked elo from not actually playing the games, they may not know how to play the game. So I think there are some free elo going around that you can easily get if you get these players or verse these players. So if I were to face like the 4th player, for example, and they don't actually know how to play the game, then they're like a major 3, for example. If I were to win against them, that's like 60 elo for me, guaranteed. But again, you have like players like me who have accidentally done this because the 2 other players have disconnected, and like other than that, all of my PvP wins have been legitimate. How do you enforce that policy, and how do you demote everyone who is such a high elo who have abused that glitch? I mean, yes, obviously you can automatically demote anyone who's like Major 1 down to Lieutenant 3 and then ask them to do everything again, but isn't that a bit unfair? And then obviously there's a case of how do the developers fix this issue. Now obviously what they can do is they can implement it so if you were to quit during the intermission part of PvP modes, then you would lose elo, which would heavily discourage a lot of players from doing this practice, and a lot of players who have been asked to do this, when they end up losing elo, they may not want to do that. Now, the only fix that I can really think of is if the game detects that the other players have quit the game right at the start of the match, then you aren't rewarded any elo for that match. However, how do you combat this when people leave the match just before they're about to lose, for example, right? Imagine that if that's on really early on. Are you really going to enforce that for players who are played so well that they're able to win within the first 5 waves, for example? This is why I really don't like the elo system, and I don't like the rewards when it comes out of the elo system. I definitely think that it should be time-based at the very least. So if you were to win the match within the first 3 minutes, for example, then you get halved amount of elo. Or if you were to win before like the 10-minute mark, which most PvP matches that I've done, which has become attritional, they've lasted over 20 minutes. So I think any matches under 10 minutes, for example, they should be halved. The elo rewards should be halved at the very least, maybe even 60-75%, to perhaps discourage this practice of winning very, very easily early on. This has become so much of an issue that apparently the testers that I can see right now, they can only find a legitimate player in like 1 of 3 matches every so often. Like, that means that 66% of players, they partake in this practice of what they call win trading, where you encourage, or one of you decides that they're going to quit the game just before the match starts, so that one of you gains some elo and the other person, they don't lose any elo, but they don't actually get any elo, and on the balance of things, people just get ranked up because of this. Now, this is the current state of affairs right now. I assume the developers, once they cotton onto this, and a lot of testers, they've actually cottoned onto this right now, and so I assume the developers are soon behind them. What the developers are probably going to do is they're going to implement some features in the next update, which it has to be today of recording this video, which is going to be a Wednesday. There's sometimes actually a midweek update. So today they may actually release a bug fix, or well, even a fix in general, to patch this issue of players win farming, as the community have so called it, and literally gaining major 1, 2, and maybe even 3 through these methods. And then you have me, who's stuck on not even Sergeant 1, Private 3, 388 elo. So when people are saying that you can win like 1,000 games and get Major 3, it's not the case. I think many people here, they may have only won like 300 times and got Major 3. But that's because they're abusing glitches to literally farm wins in 5 minutes and then get 1,000 or so elo an hour or something. So yes, if you encourage or partake in win farming right now, yeah, go ahead, go right ahead. There's no consequences right now. In the future, who knows? I don't think you're going to get banned, as some people are saying. The most that will probably happen is that your elo will get wiped. I definitely don't think bans will just be implemented. There might be some soft locks when it comes to ranked PvP modes for you, so you may get halved PvP wins for trying to encourage the practice of it for like a temporary time, but I certainly don't think that you're going to get banned for it. Although, who knows? Bug abusing is in the game as a ban reason, even though I don't think anyone has been banned for bug abusing yet. There have been worse bugs than this to abuse in Tower Defense Simulator, so who knows. The only confirmation that I guess I have from someone official is I think, moderator on the TDS Discord saying don't do win trading, and win trading is probably going to be illegal soon, but as of currently right now, it's not illegal. However, with that being said, I mean, currently right now, there's a lot of players with major 1, 2, and 3s. So if you were to play the game right now and you don't actually quit against these players, what you could do is farm a lot of elo if they don't know how to play the game. I mean, I mentioned it before, but that is an opportunity right there. Additionally, I don't think these players are actually going to lose their rewards that they've gained through, I guess, abusing this oversight that the developers have done. So if they actually ended up getting General 3 and they got like an accelerator skin, for example, or like these skins that they have here, then I don't think that the developers are going to revoke their skins. I mean, from what I can tell, there is only one skin in this entire battle pass, which is right at the very end, which some players have been, I guess, pissed off about, given the fact that the only reward after all of this is a skin, and it's at General 3, which not everyone is going to get, even if they play the game normally, and the developers fix this issue. And the fact that the developers aren't going to revoke any rewards, at least in my opinion, means that, yes, players are going to abuse this quite heavily just for a skin. And even if the developers do fix it, I bet there's going to be a way, right, where the players in Tile Defense Simulator, in ranked PvP matches, they're going to find a way of disconnecting the other team so that you win and the other players lose. And it seems like they've disconnected. They're going to lose elo, and then you gain some elo. Like, you may think that this shit isn't possible, but I know 2B2T, right? I think players somehow are going to abuse this to the point where PvP ranks becomes unplayable, as it is right now, because apparently there's a lot of players who are just, like, PvP farming by doing this.